As you do, it's known. The Pirush from the Baal Shem Tov that says, "Akores Megillah Lamafreya Lo Yotze." It's a Mishnah that says if you read the Megillah backwards or in the wrong order, you read the last part of it first, or you mix up the order of the the paragraphs, so you've not fulfilled your obligation of reading the Megillah. This is a Akor Megillah Mafreya Lo Yotze. If you read it backwards, that's the simple language. You haven't filled your obligation. Then Ayin Leint the Megillah. If a person reads the Megillah in public, this is what the Baal Shem Tov says, and he thinks that the Sipah, that the story which was told in the Megillah was a long time ago, Lamafreya. If you think the story is just a story that happened like 2,500 years ago, which it did, but if you think that that's the only purpose of the Megillah is just to tell you this wonderful history story, but has nothing to do with us right now, and that the story is not occurring right now, is there nace that right now is happening this miracle, is lo yotze. He didn't fulfill his obligation. The word yotze means he didn't go out. They're tachlis from Kriyas Megillah. The whole purpose of reading the Megillah is to learn and to learn zich from ir vi a yid darf zich führen. It's how a Jew should act now. You can say, well, listen, now we're not, we're living in America, and you're free. There's no decree to kill all the Jews. Come on, it's nothing like back there back then it was terrible. Now it's not so bad. No, says the Rebbe. No, you should know. There's a very important lesson to learn from here, and in fact, it's more terrible now than you think. Now we're not talking about physically. We'll see. You'll see. Das is a zoy benogea ala inyanim. This is like all the sentences from the Megillah. As mendarv ze leinen, you should learn niten and oifen from the mafreya. Even every sentence in the Megillah should not be read as though it's something that happened a long time ago. Allah has come, how much more so the whole entire story of the Megillah, for sure, is relevant. Is umikol shechen b'sheichos mitten pasuk, and especially which is one of the main explained in the whole, which is explained in the whole name of Purim. So the importance of the Megillah is right now. It is of vital importance, possibly more important than anything else that there is in the world. 1 second. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Come back tomorrow. You'll hear. You can look at it on the. I'm going to download it so you can see what it is. Very important. Why is it that this is the only holiday that has a Persian name? And the Rebbe is going to say a very, very important, wonderful, inspiring lesson. And good. I hope to see you tomorrow. And in them, Faran, there is a teaching, an eternal teaching for all time and every place. Their pasuk says that this says, Al kain karu liyamim elu Purim. Therefore, these days are called Purim. Al shema pur, because of the pur. What is a pur? And it says this is not understood. The whole holiday is called Purim because of this pur a lot. Therefore, the word pur is not a Hebrew name word, nor Lashon Parsha. It's a Persian word. And then their pasuk sucked and even says he pil pur, when it says that Haman he threw these lots, is Mosef hu agaral. It even explains in the Megillah that the pur is a lot, like you have a lottery, right? It's like a dice or something. I don't exactly know what they were, how they looked. Was der mit versteht der pur verteilt there. Therefore, it explains in the Megillah, it translates the word pur into Hebrew. In welche the Megillah is geschrieben, because the Megillah was written in Hebrew. Isn't it? It's not understood. For was haste der Yom Tov Purim? Why is this holiday of Purim called Pur in the language of Persian? The holiday could have been called simply the holiday of Goralot. It could have been called the holiday of lots. Goralot means like a lottery, lot. The reason I don't know what it is because it's a little bit strange exactly what it looked like, because he threw lots to understand which month it would fall in. So it can't be regular dice, right? Regular dice, because regular dice, you can't get the number one from dice. The dice, it has that there's each die has on it 6 numbers, right? So you can get only something that's above number one. You either get 2 1s, or you get 1 and 2, or 1 and 3, and 1 and 4, 1 and 5, 1 and 6. That's 7. And then you can get 2 and 2 and 6, and then 3 and 6. You can get 8, 9, 10, until finally you can get 12. But you can't get number one. So I don't know exactly, unless he excluded the number, didn't want it to happen number one, maybe because number one by the Jews was Nisan, the month of Nisan. The Jews left Egypt. I don't know exactly how these lots looked. Maybe I'll look it up. I looked a little bit, but I couldn't find. Okay. Anyway, he threw these lots so that it would come out, and he wanted to know. But the lots were called in Hebrew. In Hebrew, they're called goralot. That's what a goral is. All the days, all the Jewish holidays, even Chanukah, which is a holiday from the rabbis, all of them are called in a Hebrew name. It's also not understood the name from the Yom Tov, hat der gedarft, oisdriken vi alle andere Yom Tov, the Nes und Hatzala from Gezer Saman. Also another thing, the holiday should express something good, something that deals with the miracle. Over the name of Purim, because of the poor, this is exactly the opposite. This is the opposite. Oifdem poor was Haman. This shows the instrument that Haman used, evil Haman, in order to destroy the Jews. The Humam al Abdam. Haman wanted to know. Haman was a very spiritual person. Haman knew Kabbalah really good. He was an expert in all the mysteries. And Haman knew that the Jewish people, they are not a normal people. He realized that there's something that's going on over here. The Jewish people by that time had already existed for how long? For the 2,000 something years, right? And he realizes after the first temple, 2,500 years something. And he realized 2,500 years, is that right? No, 1,500 years. He realized, that's right. He realized that the Jewish people have been so much, they're so small, and that for some reason they just keep existing, that nothing could stop them. And God took them out of Egypt with big miracles. And so he knew that he had to deal with something unnatural. He couldn't just come with force. So he knew he had to do something that was spiritual in order to this. So therefore he decided he's not going to go according to his own logic. He's going to throw lots. So he threw lots, and it came out, exactly the month that he wanted to, the last month of the year. This happened to be the month when Moses died. Right? This is the month that Moses died. He was so happy. Moses died on Zion Adar. He was happy. It says he didn't know that Moses was born then. Doesn't make any difference. The fact of the matter is that he threw lots in order to destroy the Jews, and he won. He was right. He won. He just didn't reckon there was one level of the Jews where they come from, which is higher than even his lots, that turned the whole thing around. But they'll talk about that later. Nevertheless, the whole holiday is called by means of these lots, right? It's like a concentration camp day. That we're supposed to destroy the Jews and make a holiday out of a terrible thing like that. This is how can you make a holiday out of the poor? That was his instrument. It was only for one purpose, to destroy the Jews. How can we call a holiday on that? The holiday should be called the holiday of Esther, the holiday of Mordechai, the holiday of Nafochu, the transformation. Okay, so we have two questions. Why is the holiday called in a Persian name? And why is it called after the name of an instrument that was used to destroy the Jews? Nochan and Inyan, also another thing is in the Magilla Esther, which is connected with the whole entire Megillah, the ganze Megillah, the whole entire Megillah is not mentioned God's name. Andrish from all Kisveyat, all of the other books of the Torah, they mention God's name somehow or other. And the Megillah does not mention God's name. Was is Yeder Sfor, which is in Yedin Sefer, and Vert der Mont der Eberster's Nomen, Kama v'Kama Pami. Usually God's name is mentioned several times. Was das weist auf Helen v'Hester Godel. This is a tremendous the concealment of godliness. Bichlal, in general, every Jew, afilu v'neret binyani rishus, even when he's talking about regular mundane things, is shem shemayim shagur b'fi. Jewish people, even non-religious people, anti-religious people, they'll say thank God, if God willing, right? Baruch Hashem. They'll say something about, right? God bless. A person sneezes, God bless you. There's wer redet wegen es kommt schreiben meise. A Jew, even mundane things, they mention the name of God once in a while, right? Thank God. Is dort eingerufen bekola tfutzos the Israel, especially. But now we're writing not just in mundane things, a book which is read in all of the Jewish in all of the Jewish places where Jews are, as a filu men mishraip the brief. And not only that, even when a person writes a letter, usually they put Baruch Hashem or something like that in the corner. Okay, maybe not all the non-religious Jews do this, but nevertheless, it's very, very common that a Jew, if he has any awareness of God, he mentions the name God, or he writes it even in the corner of his page. Because God's glory fills the whole world. There's nothing empty from God. So therefore, a Jew knows simply that there's such a thing as God, right? Maybe it doesn't translate into Torah and the commandments, but it's connected with, everything is connected with God. Und da is the ganzen Megillah. And how can it be that there's one book of the whole Torah, whereas the Megillah, which is one of the 24 books, the holy books of what's called the Tanakh, the Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, which is not mentioned God's name at all, not even in a hint. How can it be? So now we have three questions. One question is, why is the whole thing in the whole holiday called a Persian name? Number two, why is it that it's called a Persian name? Number two is, why is it called on a bad thing? A pur is a bad thing. It was a thing that was used to try to destroy the Jews. And number three, why is God's name not there? God's name is not there at all. Wieder man früher, like we said before, wird der Tochen from jeder Zach eingewesen und nehmen. That a lot of times we've said that the name of a thing shows on the essence of the thing. When euch der Helm v'Hester, and this concealment of the Megillah, wird eingerufen, it's also called the same thing. What the Megillah is called, Megillus Esther. The star of the Megillah, right? The main character of the Megillah is Esther. And the Megillah is called after her name. The name Esther means concealment. Other Esther, sometimes it's called Megillus Esther, sometimes it's called Esther. When Esther, in the books of the Torah, when you see it's written, right, sometimes it says Mishle, and then it says Esther, just the name of Esther, like the book of Ruth, it's called Ruth, right? Just the name. Other Esther, but Esther is Esther shows on a concealment. Hester. Hester means concealment. And even more, oif darf da felten Hester. It's the complete concealment. Like it says in the Gemara, Esther mina Torah minayin. Where do we see that the book of Esther is hinted at in the Torah? In the Torah? No, I'm sorry, a double concealment. Where does it say in the Torah? Where is it hinted at the Esther? Like it says in the curses over there, it says, Hastir astir panai. I will conceal my face. Tzvei molester. Says on that day, says the Jewish people, if you don't do what I want, if you go against me, God says, I will hide my face. Hastir astir. I will conceal my face 2 times. That's where the book of Esther comes from, a double concealment. But on the other side, the Megillus Esther, it's called the Magilla. Gilui means revelation. The word is Gerufan Megillah. Sometimes it's just called the Megillah. I'm reading the Megillah. Mikra Megillah, we made the blessing is Al Mikra Megillah, to read the Megillah. The Megillah is not called Megillus Esther. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes it's called Esther. But sometimes it's also called Magilla. Magilla means revelation. One punkt wie der Megillah, just like the Megillah, Zet Men Tzvei Inyanim Havchim, just in the Megillah, you can see two opposites. Megillah means revelation, and Esther means concealment. Helem und Gilui. Zoid, Zet Men Oich, the Yom Tov Purim, also on the holiday of Purim. From Ein Zayt, from one side, Heis the Yom Tov, the name, it's called Purim, which Purim is Persian. And also, it's called, the Pur is a thing which is connected to the decree of Haman. Veis is Dach Yom Tov. This is the Yom Tov, which is concealed with concealment and Hester. Right? Also, God's name isn't mentioned. Only Idich, but on the other hand, the days of Purim are the days of rejoicing and a meal and rejoicing. Asach mer v'ander Yom Tov, more than all the other holidays. Biz to a simcha gadola, a great joy, but mikol medida v'agbola, above all limitations. When an often from Adalu Yada, in a way which is supposed to be, like we said before in the Mimer, you're supposed to get inebriated until you don't know, but happiness. To verstehen and to understand this, Darfman, Freer, Makdim, we have to previously understand the teaching from the whole entire story of the Megillah and the whole story of Purim, which is Ahora, this is Muvenis, which is very, very simply understood. In the time from the decree of Haman back then, when did it happen, this whole story of it happened right before the building of the second temple. Right before the building of the second temple. In other words, after the first temple had been destroyed, and the Jewish people had been in Babylon for 70 years, then they came back, and right before, that was the time when the miracle of Haman of Purim occurred. Chanukah happened like 200 years later. In the time when there was the decree of Haman, haben Yidden gehad gor chashuv far steer in their melucha. Jewish people had a very important positions in the government. Mordechai was, it says, Yeshev B'Shar HaMelech. Mordechai, it says, sat in the gateway, the entrance of the king's palace. Und derzu hat gerettet der Melech's Leben. By means of this, he saved the king's life. He said he overheard two people speaking they wanted. So here we have Mordechai was a very, very important minister by the king, he said, and also he saved the king's life. He heard two people, what is it, big son of a sherish that was speaking and they wanted to poison the king. And they were speaking in a language that they thought he couldn't understand. And he understood and he went and he told the king, saved the king's life. So the king owed him his life. When Esther is given a malka, Esther was a Jew and she was the queen of the whole world. The king loved her. It says the king, she found especially he was crazy for her. So, from the Gezerah, it should have been that as soon as they knew about the evil decree of Haman, they should have used their positions. They had tremendous pull in the government, and Mordechai saved his life. They should have gone to the king, Mordechai and Esther together, and they should have gone and negated the decree. Esther could have dressed up really nice, really beautiful, can make the food that the king loved. She could have come in with Mordechai. King would have said, wow, you really look good today. Who is this fellow with you? He says, this is the man that saved your life. Oh, yeah, right. He says, listen, we got a favor to ask you, your majesty. You made this decree on my people. What do you mean, your people? I'm a Jew. Wow, you're Jewish, Esther? Wow, hey, you really look good today. Yeah, you're Jewish, really? And I just made a decree to kill all the Jews. And Mordechai is also a Jew. He saved your life. What a mistake. That's the way it should have been. But it wasn't that way. They didn't use their pull. They didn't use their influence. They didn't use their position. Their tzilta, but the Megillah tells us as the erster pu'ula was Mordechai had ketan. The first thing that Mordechai did was that he put on sackcloth and he put ashes on his head and he went in the middle of the city. Now Mordechai was very respected by all the Jews. When they say Mordechai dressed in such a strange way, Had sich genommen, he took of himself to tshuva, to doing tshuva. When Garuf and all the Yidden, he said, all of the Jews, that you repent, right? Come back closer to God. And then after that, he sent Esther to go in front of the king to request. Good, but Esther also, she should have dressed up nice to go in front of the king. When Euch Esther had sich gefiert in dem selben Seder. Esther also, she didn't go according to nature. When she went to the king, she should have she should have devoted herself to one second. Hat zum erstes eben gegeben zu Mar to Mordechai, and she said to Mordechai, what did she say? Right? Lech kanosati kol Yudim, go gather all the Jews together, fast for me, don't eat, don't drink for 3 days, night and day. And then after that, that was not enough. She said, and also me, I'll do the same thing. Fasting for 3 days, not eating and drinking. At first glance, she should have coming to the king and tried to find favor in his eyes. She should have tried to look nice, and especially in Ir Kuman and Chatzer HaMelech, she went into the inner chambers of the king, and she wasn't called. It says that person, no one had permission to go into the inner chambers of the king unless they were invited. So let's say they let her in because they didn't know if the king invited her or not. She went in, but now she's going into the inner chamber of the king. This is forbidden with sakanas nefasha. She could have. It says that achaz datalamut naimit, and a person that went into the inner chamber of the king, not uninvited, the king should say off with his head without looking. If she had gedar the siyaschein biyechud, she should have really tried to make herself really look beautiful. Viva ani lo nikresi shloshim yom, because Esther said the king hasn't called me 30 days. Hind vias bayir rechen. So if so, how is it proper? Is fasting for 3 days, nachanan, one after the other. Azach which brings according to nature the exactly that a person looks terrible after fasting for 3 days, looks terrible. Why did Esther do it? So the Rebbe is going to say the answer is because they realized that the decree, that the Pashtus, Mordechai and Esther, they knew very clearly that the decree on the Jews was not anything natural. It was not because there was one insane person, Haman, and he decided there was don't look at nature. It wasn't a psychological thing. It wasn't a political thing. It wasn't a religious thing. It wasn't a power play. This had nothing to do with the world. It just happens to be that once in a while things go good, sometimes bad. No, they realized that because somehow or other of their bad deeds, that therefore this thing happened to them. They took the responsibility on themselves. And they realized that the responsibility was because somehow or other they were lacking in connection to God. And because Vidas is a davar pashut, this is by them a simple thing, an obvious thing. They knew that if they do not get rid of the cause, the spiritual cause, then the decree from heaven, then calls man menem the rub. If you don't remove the spiritual cause, then all of the things which they do will be in vain. First of all, the Jews have to come back to their Judaism, return to their Jewish senses. And then they'll have a chance to negate the decree of Haman. And this is really relevant to us now, as we will continue, God willing, tomorrow. And then we'll explain why is the name of God not there, and why is the name of Purim a not Jewish name. We'll explain it all tomorrow. Tune in. Okay, hope to see everybody. Oh, we'll do a Yom Yom. Hope to, excuse me. Actually, the fact is that if we're already doing it, let's try to see if we can find this here. Here we go. Ready? Yes. Here it is. Today is the 10th of Adar. When we say Birkat HaMazon before washing your fingers, you say Al Narod Bavel Lam Natseach. It's written in the Siddur. When Tachnun is not said, you say Shir Hamalot B'Shuv Hashem. After you're washing your fingers, you say Vayedaber Alai. You're supposed to wash your fingers before you say Birkat HaMazon. Before you do this, before washing your fingers, you say these psalms that are written in the Psalms was written in the Siddur, in the prayer book. You can see. Okay, did we do yesterday's? I think we did do yesterday's. Let's see. Okay, that's today's Yom Yom. Oh, what's this here? Here we go. And then we also have Udder Sheni. A lot of years there's two udders. Before a person goes on a journey from where you are, you should have a forbringen. You should say, get a blessing from your good friends. And like the expression goes, Hasidim never say goodbye because they never really depart from one another. Wherever they are one big family. Have a good day. Hope to see you at 3 o'clock where we will learn Chumash about the garments of the Kohen Gadol. Have a good day with Mashiach now.